For 34 years, I lived my life in the loudest way possible. Cameras in the living room, interviews on the couch, and millions of strangers analyzing my every move. But for the last few months, it's been quiet, and I did that on purpose. But then, that photo came out. You guys know the one. I was wearing the beige sweater, trying to be invisible at the store, and suddenly the internet was screaming, "The secret is out!" I remember looking at Stephen and saying, "Well, we can't hide forever. I've read your comments. I've seen the zoomed in screenshots. And honestly, it's overwhelming. But it's also beautiful because while you were speculating, I was living through the biggest change of my life. There have been doctor's appointments I didn't post about. There have been tears I didn't film. And there is a story behind that hidden bump that is so much sweeter and scarier than the headlines say. So grab a cup of coffee. I'm finally sitting down to tell you everything. The wedding, the move to Nebraska, and the truth about what's really happening in our growing family. This is my story. Hi everyone, it's Jana. For the longest time, my life was lived in front of a lens. Every haircut, every outfit, every side hug was documented. But for the last few months, silence. And I did that on purpose. But then that photo happened. You guys know the one. I was out running errands, wearing my favorite beige sweater, the one I thought was baggy enough to hide everything. And suddenly, the internet was screaming, "The secret is out!" I remember Stephen showing me the article. It had this red circle around my stomach and a headline asking if I was hiding a baby bump. My first instinct was to panic. In the old days, a rumor like that would have turned into a family meeting and a press release within the hour. But this time, we just looked at each other and laughed. The truth is, seeing that photo go viral was a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt exposed, like my little bubble of privacy had popped before I was ready. But another part of me felt relief. Because, yes, the rumors were true. I wasn't just wearing a baggy sweater for comfort. I was protecting the most precious secret of my life. After waiting 34 years to get married and then moving halfway across the country, I wasn't ready to share this new season with the world just yet. I wanted it to be ours first. But since the internet is rarely wrong about a Duggar pregnancy, I guess it's time to tell you the full story behind that photo. To understand why I hid this pregnancy, you have to understand the massive shift that happened in my life right before it. For over 30 years, I was the stay-at-home daughter. I lived in the girls' room in the big house in Arkansas, surrounded by my parents and a dozen siblings at any given time. My identity was wrapped up in being the helper, the gardener, the one who stayed. When I married Stephen in August 2024, everything changed overnight. I didn't just move down the street, I moved 7 hours away to Nebraska, packing up my life, leaving my garden, and saying goodbye to the little ones who I practically raised. It was gut-wrenching. I cried the whole drive north. Leaving Arkansas meant leaving the Duggar machine. For the first time, I didn't have a film crew asking me what I was making for dinner. I didn't have to coordinate my schedule with 18 other people. It was just me and Stephen. That silence was beautiful, but it was also terrifying. I had to figure out who Jana was when she wasn't a Jana Duggar, the oldest daughter. And in that quiet space, Stephen and I made a promise to protect our new life. We decided that whatever happened next, especially if we were blessed with a baby, we would do it on our own timeline, not a TV network's timeline. So, what does life look like in Nebraska? It's normal, wonderfully, boringly normal. Stephen bought this sweet little fixer upper home for us before we got married, and we have been pouring our hearts into renovating it. It's a ranch-style house, nothing like the massive compound I grew up in, and I love it. We spent the first few months just ripping up carpet and painting cabinets. I remember one day I was sanding the kitchen floors, covered in dust, and I realized nobody was watching me. There were no producers telling me to say that again with more energy. It was just me building a home with my husband. This house represents my freedom. We chose the colors. We chose the furniture. We made a temporary kitchen in the living room while we gutted the real one. It was chaotic, but it was our chaos. Living here allowed me to detach from the pressure of being a public figure. In Nebraska, I'm just Stephen's wife. I go to the grocery store, and people don't usually stop me. That anonymity is a gift I never thought I'd have. And it was in this safe, quiet, dusty little house that we found out our family was about to grow. I think every woman feels pressure to start a family, but when you are a Duggar and you are 34 years old, that pressure is on another level. For years, I watched my younger sisters, Jill, Jessa, Joy, Jinger, get married and have babies. I was always the aunt, the one holding the baby at the gender reveal, never the one cutting the cake. People used to ask me constantly, "When is it your turn?" It was painful. There were nights I wondered if I would ever get to be a mom. So when I finally got married, the clock was ticking loud. I knew people were placing bets on when I'd get pregnant. They expected a honeymoon baby. But Stephen was amazing. He never made me feel like I was running out of time. He told me we will trust God's timing. But deep down, I was anxious. I worried that maybe I had waited too long. I worried about the risks. Every month that went by felt like a silent question mark. So when we did get the news, it wasn't just excitement. It was a relief so deep it brought me to my knees. It felt like God was saying, "I didn't forget you, Jana. I was just preparing you." One of the biggest reasons we kept things quiet is actually Stephen's family. The Wissmanns are wonderful. They are a big family too, so they get it. But they are much more private than the Duggars. They didn't grow up with cameras in their faces 24/7. Stephen is very protective of me. He saw how the media treated my sisters, how every pregnancy symptom was analyzed, how every parenting choice was criticized. He didn't want that for me, and he definitely didn't want that for our baby. He introduced me to what I call the Wissmann way. It's a slower pace of life. You don't have to post everything. You don't have to monetize every moment. He taught me that privacy isn't about hiding, it's about cherishing. When we found out I was expecting, Stephen said, "Let's just keep this between us for a while. No press releases, no magazine covers, just us." It was so different from how I was raised, where a pregnancy test was basically a plot point for the next season. Embracing his way of doing things gave me the courage to wear those baggy sweaters and just smile when people asked questions, knowing I was holding a beautiful secret that the world couldn't touch yet. It's funny, looking back, the signs were there before I even took a test. We were in the thick of the house renovation. I mean, full demo mode. I was tearing up old carpet, painting walls, and carrying lumber. Usually, I have endless energy for projects like that. I'm the girl who can work a 12-hour day in the garden and feel fine. But suddenly, I was exhausted, and not just tired. It was a deep fatigue I had never felt before. I remember sitting on the floor of our half-finished living room, surrounded by sawdust, just staring at a wall thinking, "Why can't I get up?" I told Stephen I probably just inhaled too much drywall dust, or that the move was finally catching up to me. Then came the smell sensitivity. We were using this specific wood stain for the kitchen cabinets, and one day the smell of it made me have to run outside for fresh air. Stephen looked at me with this little sparkle in his eye and asked, "Are you okay?" I think he knew before I did, but I brushed it off. I thought, no way. We just got married. We just moved. It's too soon. but my body was already whispering the truth that my brain wasn't ready to hear yet. The morning I took the test, the house was quiet. Stephen had left early for work, and I was alone in our makeshift bathroom. Because remember, we were still fixing the plumbing in the main one. I dug around in a box of bathroom supplies we hadn't fully unpacked yet and found a test I had bought just in case. I didn't expect it to be positive. I really didn't. I set it on the counter and started brushing my teeth, trying not to look. When I finally glanced down, those 2 pink lines were dark, immediate. There was no squinting, no guessing. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and just cried. Happy tears, terrified tears, all of it. I wished my mom was there. I wished Jessa or Jill were there. But it was just me in my new house in Nebraska, realizing my life had just changed forever. When Stephen came home for lunch, I didn't do a cute Pinterest reveal. I just handed him the stick right there in the kitchen. He dropped his keys and hugged me so tight, I thought he'd crack a rib. In that moment, standing in our dusty, unfinished kitchen, we became a family of 3. After the initial shock wore off, we had a big decision to make. Who do we tell? In my family, the rule of thumb was usually to tell the parents immediately and then the world shortly after. But Stephen and I decided to do something radical. We decided to tell no one. We wanted a few weeks where this baby was just ours. We wanted to pray over this child and dream about our future without millions of people weighing in. It was the hardest secret I've ever had to keep. I remember FaceTime calls with Jinger and Joy where I wanted to scream, "I'm pregnant," but I bit my tongue. There is a sweetness to secrecy that I never understood before. Every time Stephen would walk by and squeeze my hand or wink at me when we were around friends who didn't know, it felt like we had this little invisible bond. We were protecting our peace. We knew that once the news was out, the questions would start, the due date, the gender, the names. We just wanted a little more time to be Jana and Stephen before we became mom and dad to the public. Okay, let's talk about the wardrobe. You guys are detectives. I thought I was being so slick, but apparently wearing oversized overalls every day is a dead giveaway. The truth is the renovation was the perfect cover. I could wear baggy t-shirts and flannel shirts and just say, "Oh, I'm painting today!" But as the weeks went on, the bumps started popping way faster than I expected. I remember we had to go to a wedding in Hawaii, and I panicked. I couldn't wear my usual fitted dresses. I found this loose, flowy beige dress and thought, this hides everything. Looking back at the photos now, I'm laughing because it really didn't. I saw the comments starting to roll in. Is that a bump? Why is she standing behind Stephen in every picture? It became a game of angles. I'd hold a purse in front of me, or I'd stand behind a kitchen island in my YouTube videos. It wasn't about being deceptive. It was just about buying time. But I have to give it to the fans. You guys noticed the change in my style before I even bought my first pair of maternity jeans. Finally, we knew we couldn't keep it from my parents any longer. We planned a trip back to Arkansas to pick up some custom cabinets for the kitchen. It was the perfect excuse to see everyone without raising suspicion. I was so nervous. I'm 35 years old, married, and established, but telling your parents you're having a baby still makes you feel like a little kid. We gathered everyone in the living room at the big house. Mom, Dad, and whoever was home, which is still a lot of people. We gave them a small gift box. Inside was a little Nebraska Huskers onesie. Watching my dad's face change from confusion to realization was priceless. Mom instantly started crying. She's the grandma of, 30 kids now, but she still cries for every single one. It was a relief to finally let them in. My dad gave Stephen a huge handshake and started talking about building the next generation. Leaving Arkansas was hard, but sharing that joy in the living room where I grew up made the distance feel a little bit smaller. Telling my sisters was probably the moment I looked forward to the most. For years, I was the one getting the calls. I was the one screaming, "Congratulations!" when Jill, Jessa, Jinger, and Joy told me their news. I was the aunt who packed the hospital bags and organized the baby showers. To finally be the one making the call, it felt surreal. I FaceTimed Jinger in LA first. I knew she would understand the privacy aspect better than anyone. When I showed her the positive test, she literally dropped her phone. She was crying, I was crying, it was a mess. She told me, "Jana, you have taken care of everyone else's babies your whole life. It's finally your turn." That hit me hard. Then came the calls to the others. It's a funny dynamic shift. I'm the oldest, the big sister, who always had the answers. But in this department, I'm the rookie. I had to humble myself and ask them for advice. What prenatal vitamins do you take? How do you handle the nausea? It was sweet to see my little sisters step up and become the mentors. They have been checking on me constantly, sending me care packages with things I didn't even know I needed. It's bonded us in a new way. I'm not just Jana the helper anymore. I'm a Jana the mom, and they are welcoming me into the club with open arms. Watching Stephen prepare to be a father has made me fall in love with him all over again. You know, in my family, the men are excited about babies, but there is often a separation of duties. The moms do the heavy lifting with the infants, but Stephen is different. He is fully in this with me. He's been reading books, actual parenting books. He comes home from work and talks to my belly. He's already planning how to baby-proof the workshop so the baby can help him when they get older. It's so cute. He's also very protective of the peace of our pregnancy. He knows that once the baby is here, the world will want access. He's been really thoughtful about setting boundaries now. He tells me, "Jana, we don't owe anyone photos. We don't owe anyone updates. We just owe this baby a happy home." Hearing that permission from him to prioritize our family over the brand is healing for me. He's going to be such a gentle, steady dad. He's not doing it for the applause. He's doing it because he genuinely wants to know this little person. We have to talk about the scary part, though. I'm 35. In the medical world, that is technically considered a geriatric pregnancy. Can you believe that term? Geriatric! I feel young, I feel healthy, but the doctors treat it differently. When you wait as long as I did, there are more tests. There are more statistics thrown at you. I went into my first appointment feeling excited, but I left feeling really anxious. They talked about risks, about complications, about all the things that could go wrong. I spent a few nights just lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had waited too long. My body has served others for so long, gardening, building, carrying nieces and nephews, but could it do this? Stephen was my rock during those weeks. He reminded me that fear is not from God. We had to make a conscious choice to stop Googling statistics and start trusting. We did the genetic testing, we went to the specialists, and we prayed. It's a different experience than my sisters had in their early 20s. It's more calculated, a little more nerve-wracking, but I think that makes every healthy heartbeat we hear on the monitor sound even sweeter. Going to the OB/GYN in Nebraska was a culture shock in the best way possible. In Arkansas, whenever one of us went to the doctor, it was an event. There were cameras, producers, sound guys. You basically had to sign a waiver to get an ultrasound. Here, it's just me and Stephen in a quiet waiting room. Nobody knows who I am. The nurse calls Jana Wissmann, not Jana Duggar. I sit there reading a magazine like a normal person. There is something so intimate about hearing your baby's heartbeat. when there isn't a boom mic hovering over your head. It feels sacred. I remember the first time we saw the baby on the screen, kicking and moving. I squeezed Stephen's hand, and we shared a look that wasn't captured for a season finale. It was just for us. That privacy allowed me to actually process what was happening. I wasn't performing excitement for a viewer, I was just feeling it. I realized that I had missed out on so many authentic emotions in the past because I was too busy worrying about how they looked on camera. Okay, the fun part. The nursery. For 30 years, I have decorated rooms for other people. I designed the boys' room in the big house. I helped Jessa with her nursery. I helped Joy. I was always the interior designer, never the client. Finally, I get to design a room for my baby. And let me tell you, it is going to be different. I love the big house, but everything had to be durable, industrial, and fit for an army. Here, I can choose soft fabrics. I can choose light colors without worrying that 20 muddy toddlers will ruin it in 5 minutes. We chose a small room right next to ours. Stephen is building the crib, of course, and I'm working on a mural for the wall. It's going to be nature-inspired, very calming. Lots of greens and creams. I stood in that empty room the other day, holding a tiny pair of socks, and just wept. It hit me that this room isn't a dormitory. It's not a content studio. It's a place where I will rock my child to sleep. It's a place where I will finally be mom. It's the project I've been waiting my entire life to start. The question everyone asks me, literally everyone, is, are you going to do the letter J? My parents famously named all 19 of us with a J name. It's their trademark, and honestly, for a long time, I thought I would just carry on the tradition because it's all I knew. But Stephen and I have had some long late night talks about this. We realized that this baby is the start of our family tree, not just a branch of my parents. We want a name that has meaning for us, regardless of what letter it starts with. We've been tossing around names that are classic, strong, and maybe a little nature-inspired since we both love the outdoors. I won't lie, there is a lot of pressure. If we pick up J, everyone will say we are copying my parents. If we pick something else, people will say we are rebelling. We decided to stop worrying about the commentary and just find a name that fits the little soul we are praying for. So, to answer the question, we have a list. And yes, there are some J's on it, but there are also some A's, some M's, and some W's. You'll just have to wait and see. One of the hardest parts of this pregnancy has been the paranoia. Even though we are in Nebraska, the world feels small. I stopped posting on Instagram almost entirely because I was terrified that someone would analyze a reflection in a window or notice that my face looked fuller. There were moments when I felt like a fugitive in my own life. I'd go to the grocery store in a baseball cap and sunglasses, looking over my shoulder. It sounds dramatic, but after seeing drones fly over my parents' house for years, the fear is real. But Stephen has been my protector. He reminds me, Jana, we aren't hiding because we are ashamed. We are hiding because we are treasuring this. He takes the brunt of it. He checks the mail. He screens the calls. Stepping back from social media was actually a detox I didn't know I needed. It forced me to live in the moment. Instead of curating a perfect pregnancy feed, I was just napping, eating, and being pregnant. It was messy and unpolished, and I wouldn't trade that piece for a million likes. Let's talk about the symptoms because wow, nobody warned me about the heartburn. I grew up watching my mom be pregnant basically my entire life, but you don't really understand it until you're in it. I always thought she made it look so easy. She was always smiling, always moving me. I am not glowing. I am sweating. The first trimester was rough. I lived on crackers and ginger ale, and the cravings are hilarious. I used to be such a healthy eater, fresh garden veggies, salads. Now, all I want is tater tots and pickles. Stephen makes late, night runs to the gas station for me, and he never complains. It's given me a new appreciation for my body. For years, I disciplined my body to work hard. Now, I'm learning to listen to it when it says rest. It's a lesson in surrender. I can't control the nausea. I can't control the fatigue. I just have to ride the wave. It's humbling, but feeling those little kicks after a spicy meal makes every single moment of heartburn worth it. Did we find out the gender? Yes, we did. We are planners. We needed to know if we were building a crib for a cowboy or a cowgirl, but we kept that secret even tighter than the pregnancy itself. We found out just the two of us. We didn't do a cake cutting or a smoke bomb. The doctor just wrote it in an envelope. We sat in our car in the parking lot, and we opened it together. I screamed. Stephen cried. It was perfect. I'm not going to tell you just yet. You'll have to wait for the baby to arrive. But I will say this, it was exactly what I hoped for deep down. I always thought I'd be a boy mom, because I helped raise so many brothers. But then again, having a little girl to garden with sounds like a dream. Knowing who is in there has made it so real. We call the baby by name now. It's not just the bump, it's a person. Our person. I sit here in my nursery, in a quiet house in Nebraska. I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. My journey to motherhood wasn't a straight line. It was a long, winding road with a lot of waiting. There were years where I wondered if God had forgotten this desire in my heart. But looking back, I see the timing was perfect. I needed to find Stephen. I needed to find my own voice. I needed to step out of the shadow of the big house so I could build a home of my own. This baby is going to have a very different life than I did. They won't grow up on television. They won't have to share a bedroom with 8 siblings. But they will know they are loved. They will know their cousins, their grandparents, and their heritage, but they will also have the freedom to write their own story. I'm not just raising a Duggar grandkid, I'm raising a Wissmann, and together Stephen and I are starting a new legacy, one built on faith, but defined by freedom. Thank you for listening to my story and for waiting with me. The best chapter is just beginning.